Welcome in, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you guys for joining us for this week's Torah portion. We are finishing the book of Exodus and the book of Mark, and there are some really interesting parallels as we get into this that I want to show you that stuck out to me. One really simple lesson that we learned that actually gives us a lot of insight into a few things here. Notice that in Mark 16, I'm not going to read all of this for you. We read it at our meeting tonight, but basically says when the Shabbat was over, Mary Magdalene, Mary, the mother of James, and Salome brought spices so that they might anoint him very early on the first day of the week. And they came to the tomb when the sun had risen. They were saying one to another, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance to the tomb?" And looking up, they saw the stone had been rolled away, although it was extremely large. Entering the tomb, they saw a young man sitting at the right, wearing a white robe, and they were amazed. And he said to them, "Do not be amazed. You are looking for Jesus the Nazarene, who has been crucified. He has risen. He is not here. Behold, here is the place where they laid him." So now a series of events is going to begin to happen where Jesus is going ahead of them to Galilee. He has risen. They're trying to communicate that. He ends up casting out, we are reminded that he casted out 7 demons from Mary Magdalene. The report is going forward, and many refuse to believe it, according to what it says here. And then he appeared in a different form to 2 of them while walking along the country. And then he appeared again to the 11 themselves, and he disciplined them or reproached them or corrected them because they were unbelieving when the people who had seen that he had risen came and told them. And then he begins to give some commands in verse 15. He says, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. He who has believed and has been baptized shall be saved." And then he goes in and says, "In my name, they will cast out demons. They will speak in new tongues. They will pick up serpents. And if they drink deadly poison or any deadly poison, it will not harm them. They will lay hands on the sick and they will recover." And then when he actually doesn't tell us that here, but when Jesus had finished speaking to them, he was received up to heaven. So he ascended to heaven, sat down on the right hand of the Father. And then the disciples do what he said. They went out and preached everywhere. But notice what it says there: while the Lord worked with them and confirmed the word by the signs that followed them. So we see a lot of things here in this passage. We see a finished work of Messiah. We see a finished first coming of Messiah, the first portion of his work, where he ministered on earth. He suffered, he spoke, he preached, he died, he was crucified. He gave himself as an offering for us. Then we see that along these passages, the stone was rolled away. We see all these works that he's doing, that he has risen, that he's going ahead of the disciples, that he begins to speak to them and tell them many things. He appears to them. He's casted out 7 demons. He reproves them or reproaches them. He ascends to the Father. He sits down on the right hand of the Father, but then he continues to work with the disciples and confirm the word. So we see the work of Messiah going on here. Now, I want you to notice something back to the very first verse we read. Notice that the work came after the Sabbath. In actuality, the work is not more important than the Sabbath. The Sabbath comes first, because you're going to see this again. Many times the reason we mistranslate things in the New Testament is because we miss the patterns of what's happening in the Old Testament being fulfilled or being shown to us in a different way, and we think something new is happening. So we get to see all of these pieces of the work that Messiah did, but then we also have in this many things that are part of the work we are to do that we see through the disciples. He tells them to go into the world, to preach the gospel, to believe, to be baptized, and to baptize others. to cast out demons, to speak with new tongues, to lay hands on the sick, and then to go out and preach. This is the work we saw them do. One of them was just preaching the gospel where they were. One is going into the world and preaching the gospel. So when you see those two next to each other. But this is the work that was given to them to do. Now, I was raised thinking this is our responsibility. The Lord has done all this stuff. It's finished. And now it's our turn. And we get out there and we make it happen, right? Well, I'm going to show you something in the Old Testament that actually gives us a different lens to view this from that's really important. So it talks to us in chapter 35. It says, it begins with saying that Moses assembled the congregation of the sons of Israel and said to them, "These are the things the Lord has commanded you to do. For 6 days you may work may be done, but on the seventh day you shall have a holy day, a Sabbath of rest, complete rest to the Lord. Whoever does any work on it shall be put to death. You shall not kindle a fire in any of your dwellings on the Sabbath day." So now we get a picture of, just like in chapter 16 of Mark, Exodus 35, this portion is going to begin with the Sabbath being given. Once again, because the Sabbath is more important than the work. The Sabbath is being given and a reminder once again before they begin the work on the most important thing that was ever built on earth, the tabernacle in which the Lord actually dwelt. Okay, so then we're going to see a bunch of things here. But Bezalel and Aholiab, every skillful person in whom the Lord has put skill and understanding to know how to perform all the work in the construction of the sanctuary, shall perform it in accordance with all that the Lord has commanded. And then Moses called Bezalel and Aholiab, and every skillful person in whom the Lord had put skill, and everyone whose heart stirred him to come to work to perform it. You're going to hear work a lot in this passage, right? And they received from Moses all the contributions which the sons of Israel had brought to perform the work in the construction of the sanctuary. And they still continued bringing to him free will offerings every morning. So I want you to see, I want to set the picture here. So the Lord has commanded them to build a house for him. He has given them the picture, the blueprints of exactly how this is supposed to be done. He has begun to assemble the people who are skillful and can do the work. And then he has the people come and bring the offerings. Let's read about that, right? And the skillful men who were performing all the work of the sanctuary, each from the work which he was performing. And they said to Moses, "The people are bringing much more than enough for the construction work, which the Lord commanded us to perform." So Moses issued a command, and a proclamation was circulated throughout the camp, saying, "Let no man or woman any longer perform work for the contributions of the sanctuary." Thus the people were restrained from bringing any more, for the material they had was sufficient and much more than enough for all the work to perform it. I want you to look here at the picture of the most holy place ever being built on earth. Really elaborate, okay? The construction of it, the skill, the material, all of it is amazing. And when the Lord had enough, he said, "That's all I need." And he was content with what he had. One of the things that is an epidemic in the church today is us feeling like we never have enough. We need to learn to be, whether much or whether little, to be content with what the Lord has given to us. Now, we see in this passage, there's a lot of really cool things happening that I want to point out to you, because there is a lot of work being performed. And just like the Lord was performing work in Mark 16, we got to see different things that he did. We saw different things that the disciples did, different things that we were commissioned to do as well, or should follow in that example. And now we see that the tabernacle is going to be built and there is work to be done, and the Lord assembles the people. But I want you to see something that's really, really important in this understanding. The work that was to be done. Notice that they had everything they needed to perform the good work that was before them. The good works that they were going to put together in the tabernacle were prepared for them. In other words, the Lord gave them a picture, a command of exactly what he wanted done. He had given them all of the gifts that were required, all of the material that was required, all of the provision that was required. God had given them the blueprints and the ability. All they had to do was the work. Everything was provided through him. The work, the workman, and the workmanship was all provided through him. So this is a really important concept for us to get, because sometimes we get into this idea that we are the ones making things happen. And in actuality, we are not. He is the one providing everything that is needed for the work. He is providing the workers. He is providing the material. He is providing the blueprint. He is providing everything that is needed in order to perform all the work, as it says right here in chapter 36, verse 1. All of the things that are needed. It makes you wonder. I don't know if Bezalel and Aholiab were skilled before the Lord anointed them for this. I don't know if all these skillful workers were, they already knew how to do this stuff and the Lord gave it to them. But this is intricate work when you go through and read all of these passages. And it's amazing what they were able to do. So when we read this, it gives us insight into what's happening in the New Testament, and we see some things that correct our theology to believe and work and participate in the kingdom of God in the correct way. Because when you get to Ephesians chapter 2, we see a doctrine that a lot of times we don't understand, and we get into some weird territory here with making things say stuff that it doesn't really say. And that's kind of our problem. We're going to look at Ephesians 2 in just a second. But before we look at that, I want to tell you that when I highlight things in these teachings, a lot of times I do them in purple, blue, and red. For those of you that don't know, I may have mentioned this before, but I like to highlight things in purple or color things in purple that have to do with the Father. Okay. I like to do things in blue that are the Son, and I like to do things in red that are us, okay, humans. And so when we read this, we're going to read something taking place just like was taking place in the tabernacle, okay? It says Ephesians 2, verse 8, For by grace you have been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it is the gift of God, not as a result of works, so that no one may boast. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand so that we would walk in them. Okay? Now, let's look at this for a second, because I don't know about you guys, but I was raised in a place, in a environment in the faith where the Lord had taken care of everything. In verses 8 and 9, I wasn't really participating. And then in verse 10, that's where I pick up the baton and I finish that race, right? And that's not really where the Lord is needed. But if we go all the way back, remember what we read in Mark at the very, very end of chapter 16. The very last verse of Mark says, the Lord, the Messiah, had ascended and is now sitting on the right hand of the Father. And it says that when they went out and preached everywhere, the Lord worked with them and confirmed the word by the signs that followed. So Yeshua was still present. Jesus was still present as they were preaching. He was still operating and doing things. That's why it's in blue. Now, in this verse, we see that it's only by the grace of God that you and I are still alive. We should have been cut off from life and from the Lord at a long time ago. All the sin that I've accumulated, all the sin that any person that walks on this earth has accumulated, it is only by the grace of God that we are still here and able to try to figure out how to restore that relationship, right? But it's that grace now We have an offer because of that grace. We have been here long enough, and we're still in a state where Yeshua can offer himself as a sacrifice for us in order that that relationship can be restored and we can be saved. That's what that word is in blue there, through faith, through us having the faith to put in the grace of the Father and the salvation of the Son, right? And that's not of ourselves. That whole process is a gift of God. It's not a result of our works, right? So that we can't boast. But look at what it says. In the same way that God designed a tabernacle and then he anointed people to build that tabernacle as an offering to him, as a work to him. Now it says, for we are his workmanship. Whose? Christ's. So the tabernacle that he gave Christ to build is you and me. We are now the tabernacle that Christ is building. We're created in Christ Jesus for what? For good works. Those good works are, us participating in this building of the tabernacle. But look at what it says, which God prepared beforehand. He's already prepared all those works. That's the works of the Torah. That's all of the blueprints that he wrote down, all of the ability that he gave. He took care of everything beforehand so that now we can just do what? Walk in it. So what's our part? Our part is to have faith in him, have faith in what he's done for us, have faith in the Messiah, and then put into practice those good works which he prepared for us long ago. The works of the Torah, the work of the law, right? And just walk in those things. It's not up to us if someone gets saved. What is it up to us to do? To preach, to testify, to share the good news. It's not up to us to provide a healing for someone, but if someone is sick, it is our responsibility to lay hands on them and pray for them. That is the good work. And then he comes along and does the actual accomplishing of that healing or of that restoration or of that salvation. That's not the part we worry about. We just get involved in the process and we walk in the works that he's already prepared for us. So we see that illustrated for us in the works of the tabernacle, and that carries through the entire New Testament as well in order to give us that perspective. So hopefully that made sense. It made a lot more sense, I think, when we talked about it tonight, but I did the best I could. So Shabbat Shalom. God bless you guys, and we'll see you next time.